So it's been a minute since I've posted something, around like I think 14 days. And I told myself when I started this channel that I would be consistent and I would post something. And I've decided a new goal in my head. I'm gonna stick to it. But today I want to talk about balancing busyness, balancing all the areas in your life, the complex mechanisms of life, and how do you keep them each in a state which is healthy, manageable, and not neglective of the other states. And this is a challenging thing, and I've been, as you can tell by the lack of posts, I've dropped this part of my life slightly, but I'm coming back. This part of my life of creativity and videography. I think balancing the areas of your life is perhaps one of the hardest skills to attain. And I think it is a skill because I think it requires some intention. Because without intention, if we just live our lives as I have been for the last 2 weeks, we fall into this monotony. Now, before I go on, I do think monotony is good to a degree. I think it can boost productivity hugely, but you need to have the right monotony. If the monotony is too focused on one aspect of your life, so work was an example for me, then you neglect other parts like video creation, or it might be relationships, or it might be health. And it's like, how do you strike this balance between balancing everything? Lots of the word balance in there. But how do you strike this sort of balance without overcompensating for one or the other? Because, life is like, it's a cycle, and there's stages where you're more motivated to do a certain aspect of your life, or you're more inclined to, or just the circumstances that you're in means that you are forced to spend more effort and time and money into a certain part of your life. How then do you not neglect the other parts of your life? Because if you neglect the other parts of your life, I think it can be really detrimental. So let's take an example for myself. I've been focused on work. Relationships have been okay, they've been constant, but I've lacked in my expression of creativity because of the analytical work side of things that I've just been so focused on, and university as well, study. And so what this has meant is that I feel like I'm not chasing the goal that I set myself last year for this channel. And I think when we don't work towards achieving our goals, but we have a goal in place and we're not working towards it, I think that is one of the biggest impacts on your self-esteem, because you feel like you're letting yourself down, you know? Like, I think about times in my life where I was disciplined in my gym, in my work, in my study, and in creative outlets like videography or filming. And when those times in my life occur, and when I'm striking that balance, even if it's for a day, I feel like I'm achieving something because I set out to achieve something and then I do it. And I think this has a extremely important impact on our ability to feel proud of ourselves. Like, think about, when was the last time that you were truly, truly proud of who you are, of who the man you are becoming or the woman you are becoming. For me, there was a few times, but there's so much more I want to achieve. And for me, if I'm not disciplined and I'm not reaching those checkpoints mentally and checklist wise, then I don't feel proud of myself. And again, it's like, where do you draw the line of like, okay, yes, I'm intrinsically proud of the growth that I'm chasing towards, but if I'm not actioning that growth, then it's just going to become voidless. It's not going to go anywhere. And then how am I going to achieve anything? But that's a slightly different point I have deterred. So, balancing, how do we do it? How do we do it? I think it's all about intentionality. Intentionality, where we focus and we recognize when one aspect of our life is becoming too much. And it's hard to cut down. Like sometimes it's impossible. Like if work is just too intense or study is too intense and you got exams, sometimes you can't cut down. And I think it's good to acknowledge that, because then as soon as you acknowledge, okay, I can't cut down now, at least you remove that guilt of, oh, I should have been doing this, or I should have been filming content. No, I'll know in my stage in my life where I am right now, if I have exams and I'm putting a lot of my time and energy into studying, that's okay, because that's what I have to do in the stage of my life right now. As long as it's not detrimental to your health, you know, sacrificing in other areas of your life to a degree, I think is okay. But I do think we need to be mindful of the level of sacrifice that we give. Sometimes they aid each other. So when I was studying for my exams last year, obviously I was spending a lot of time revising and working, but I didn't want to sacrifice gym and health. And so I would still go to gym and I would still go to health. And it actually improved my time spent studying. So it didn't, yeah, it took away from the actual time I was studying, yes, but the time was much more productive, much more productive. And so I think sometimes it's hard to be like, okay, I'm going to pull back on this a little bit and then just increase this other part of my life. Because when you increase that other part of your life, suddenly, for me, let's say make content creation, I feel okay. I feel like I'm releasing that creativity outlet. Okay, now that I have that outlet released, I can be more productive at work. I can be more productive in my studies. And therefore, if I'm being productive and disciplined, I'll be able to feel proud of myself and be in a better mental state, and then my relationships will improve. So I think be intentional. Take a moment to think, okay, how am I balancing everything? Is it uneven? How can I balance it? Is it possible to balance it? And if it is, am I willing to compensate? And I think it's healthy if you do compensate, but you need to do it right. Don't overcompensate, don't undercompensate. But I think it's also okay, if you go through a stage in your life where one is just all the attention and time is spent on that one thing. But you need to be careful not to do that for too long, because then you run the risk that you harm all the other areas of your life. And if you don't balance all of it, or at least if you don't have some degree of each area in your life contributing to who you are as a person, I think it can create a lot of unhappiness. So think about that today. It's just a thought I had. But yeah, hope that helped you. And as always, thanks for listening.